For the record, we may or may not make some mouth noises that may or may not cause your panties to get into a bunch. You know what? That's your problem, not mine.
Good morning, Jeannie.
Good morning.
How are you doing today?
I need more coffee. That's pretty normal.
More coffee. I can understand that. So this is Shane and Jeannie of Polyamory Podcast, and we are being joined today by Fred Sims, who is the co-host of the Oh Really Rod.
One more time.
We are joined today by Fred Sims, co-host of the Oh Really Rod. Fuck you. Why do you have a hard goddamn thing to say?
Oh Really Radio.
It's not really.
Oh Really Radio.
Do you want me to take that one for you?
Yes,
Instead
it is.
Just say,
no, I've got it. God damn it.
this is how professional we are.
Yeah, see? Because I know I can edit shit. If I was live, I'd be rocking the fuck out of this. All right. So, stop laughing, goddammit.
Nope. Okay, keep going.
We are joined today by Fred Sims, co-host of the Oh Really Radio podcast. He's also an essay contributor to the PC Live by Marissa McCool. He's a monogamous cis white male. We won't hold that against him. And he's an ally to whoever will have him.
Try that.
Sorry.
Take three.
And he's an ally to whoever
Who typed this?
You
I cut and
did.
pasted.
Or she
I cut
did.
And pasted. He's got it up on the screen right now. He can't.
Well, no,
He's a
I'm
cis
looking at the
white
run
male.
sheet, so.
Yeah. I copied and pasted from what she typed.
No,
It's not
I
my
copied
fault.
and pasted. I copied and pasted from what you sent me for your intro.
Wow, I'm a jerk.
Yeah, you are.
Ruining
Yeah.
openings since
And-
2017.
Keep on keeping on, man.
But yeah, he's an ally to whoever will have him be an ally for, except for Nazis and the KKK.
Wow, that was really ungrammatical.
I don't think grammatical matters in that stance. Like, I agree. Like, except for Nazis. Like,
Did you just really grammar Nazi me on my own goddamn show?
wait.
Can't be your ally. No
snap.
grammar Nazis.
Wait, whose show?
I mean, our show, but still. Did you just grammar
Yes, I
Nazi me?
did.
Whatever.
Yes, dear.
By the way, I'm keeping all this shit.
Fred, would you actually mind telling us how the fuck did you end up on the PC Lie or in the PC Lie?
Random Facebook magic. And thank you for the introduction, all three of them, but people won't know that. What happened is I follow some of the podcasts that I really enjoy on Facebook, and one of the people that I happen to follow is Eli Bosnick, because how can you not? And
He's amazing. I want to make love to
he's
him.
got great at ReasonCon. Like, someone wants to meet that man at ReasonCon. He's making himself too available.
I'm going to hug him very uncomfortably. I may use more than one to hug him.
That's interesting.
I've got a leg.
Yeah, I figured I was going. That was the thing, is it was either leg or you've got an extra appendage that women really love.
Yes.
I want a
That's what I'm going to go
5-minute warning so I can get video of this when ReasonCon happens. Okay.
Fair enough. You have until Shane fangirls the fuck out, Fred fangirls the fuck out, and whichever one of us get to him first.
Yes, I want a 5-minute warning. Like, when the Eli walks into the room, I want a 5-minute warning.
And
That man's going to get just like dogpiled by everybody in the room.
But he had shared something that Marissa was working on, and that introduced me to the inciting incident. So while I was Facebook stalking through her posts, I happened to come across a post of her talking about the book. And when I read the premise, it made me think of the Facebook post that I had put out at the end of the night on election night. I mean, I watched all the way through to the end, basically all the way through until he had gotten to where he was at in New York at the convention and was giving his speech. And at that point, I just word vomited onto Facebook a bunch of fuck yous, and a lot of them were directed at my friends, family, and coworkers.
Right.
And, it was a lot of, fuck you for letting down the LGBTQ community. Fuck you for letting down, immigrants. Basically everybody that was going to feel something for real, i.e. not this cis white male, but everyone else that I would care about that's going to feel a real negative effect. Those people that provided those votes needed a fuck you. At least that's what I felt at the time. So when I read her synopsis, I'm like, oh shit, this is my book soulmate. And I sent her a message and I was like, hey, any chance you were looking for additional entries? Because I seen that she had one from Eli and I had seen that she had one from Andrew Torres and Chris Cluey had done the forward, and I just threw it out there. I have something that I wrote. Would you be willing to put it in the book?
Wow.
At the same time, I also, one of my co-hosts on O'Reilly, Amber, had also written something, and it was kind of the opposite of what I had done. Not in that she was praising Trump, but just in the way that she was dealing with it. And I was like, I can get you 2 submissions. So I told Riss before I even asked Amber if I could use it, then real quick message Amber and was like, hey, can I submit your piece for a book? And got permission. We got them submitted. And so we both ended up in the book together, just because I happened to catch something that Eli had posted that shared something Marissa had done.
That's amazing.
Awesome.
And that has turned into, obviously, I got my little name drop on the book. It's super awesome. I've read it. It's an amazing book. Eli's essay is especially poignant to me because it describes a relationship with a former friend that I'm currently going through right now. And as I'm reading it, I'm like, holy shit, this is exactly what I'm going through. But I just finished and submitted another entry to Riss's book that's coming out called False Start, about mental health and kind of allyship there. And the funny thing is that because I was able to get Amber and Riss together, Amber's company, Wormwood Publishing, is actually going to be doing the editing and publishing of the new book.
Oh,
Wow,
that's an amazing story.
amazing.
This is how we work. This is how we make things better.
And that was,
Right.
the one weird thing is I had seen obviously examples of the community in action via listening to podcasts and listening to shows and seeing how people interact on the different message boards. But I had not personally seen an example of the community working in that way. And it just to personally experience like, hey, all of these things fell into place. And because of Marissa, I was able to meet Chris Watson and do his show, and then through that meet you guys and do your show. And it's just kind of snowballing from there where, I'm meeting these people that are really amazing. And had I just stayed in my safe little bubble of I'm going to post, a sarcastic, witty comment when people do some shit I don't agree with, I don't know that I'd be recording with you guys today. I'd just be doing my show every Friday. I have a group that I listen to all the time, but there's always something new. I'm always adding a new show to them. Like, how am I going to fit this in?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's one of those things that I'm struggling with right now because my podcast list is so big, and I'm just like, and then, oh, what am I going to listen to now? And I've got Dan Savage, and then I've got Gamcast, which is god awful movies, and Skepticrat's coming back, and oh my God, Scathing Atheist is just being so steady and dropping everything all the time, and I'm just like, all these people. And so, Fred, I have a question though, just real quick. Where are you based out of?
I am in Central Florida. So it's an hour to the east of Orlando. It's a place called.
Okay. Are you going to be able to make it to any cons that are coming up?
Oh yeah, I'm going to ReasonCon with the main host of O'Reilly, Andy Cowan. We're set to be there for the whole con. It'll be the first time I've gone. This will be the third one that he's gone to. Obviously, it's ReasonCon 3. He's been to each of the 2 previous. We'll be doing the sponsoring. I think, we've got the podcast bundle deal that they offer, and we'll just be there kind of going around and meeting everybody. So I'm looking forward to it because, I heard a bunch of podcasts talk about not last year's, but the year before's. Obviously, they didn't do one last year because of the Reason Rally. But I'm just looking forward to that community and meeting a ton of people that I've, branched out to get to know in the, little bit over a year that I've been doing this.
Do you think Do you think you're going to be able to make it to NanoCon in Nashville?
I'm not sure about that one. I know Chris has been promoting it, and he had put out a message last night asking people to give a shout out. And I think it's something that, Andy and I will probably look into. It just depends time wise, like, how the timing works out.
Yeah, the timing is going to be kind of key for me because I'm not currently working right now, so my money's real tight. But for those that are interested, NanoCon's coming up in Nashville, Tennessee, Saturday, March 18th. That's our plug, Chris. You're welcome. And then ReasonCon's going to be April 21st and 22nd in Hickory, North Carolina. And you're going to get to see me, and you're going to get to see Fred, and Jeannie's going to be
Fred,
there.
Prepare to be hugged, Fred. I don't have a third leg, but yeah. I'll make the hug count.
I imagine that I will be very hugged throughout the con. A few people have told me the same thing. So,
yeah, Callie Wright's going to be there, and that means she's going to hug people, and she's an amazing hugger. I haven't hugged Eli, so I can't solve their dispute as to who is a better hugger. But hopefully, I can make that judgment after reason.
Well, if he licks you, does that tip the balance?
If he licks me, we're going to have to find a hotel room. That's all I'm going to say. I love you, Eli. Eli doesn't even know who I am. I'm just some fan on his Facebook page. It's one of those things. He's my celebrity crush.
Aww.
How could he not be? I mean, Eli is literally how I got into other podcasts. When I started listening to podcasts, I listened solely to O'Reilly Radio because it existed for a time without me. So that's where I started. I was like, well, if I'm going to be doing this show, let me listen to the back catalog and see what it's about, see how it works. Through listening to the back catalog, I was introduced to some other Barroom Atheist in the Trailer Park, people that Andy had on. And so I started listening to their shows, and then they talked about other shows. Well, then I found a set that I really liked. I love Cognitive Dissonance. And when I came into listening to Cognitive Dissonance is the exact time that they had Eli on when he gave that story that he got from the Yak, and they had that little bit of, he came back on it. I had some information. I want to correct it. But that initial time on Cognitive Dissonance was the first time I listened to that show. Absolutely fell in love with Eli. I was laughing so hard at work that I couldn't breathe. And I was immediately like, okay, I have to find everything he's done. And I started downloading shows specifically based off of him being on them. And then if the shows were good, which pretty much all of them are, I just kept listening. And then when that was, I think at the time, God Awful Movies had about 3 in the can, maybe. And I started listening to that show, and I've listened to it. It's the first thing I listen to every Tuesday when it drops. There's nothing else that I listen to before God Awful Movies. And then
if they only had 3 in the can, you're still new.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. It's only been about a year that I've been doing anything or listening to anything. It's a little over a year.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Scathing Atheist was my introduction to atheist podcasting. And I've listened to Scathing Atheist every day every time it's dropped for the past 4 years. 4 years since I started listening to podcasts. I'm
a podcast veteran. Shit.
Yeah.
Well, I've caught up on the back catalog of Scathing. I'm completely caught up there. I still have about 80 episodes to go to catch up on Cogdis, but since I've caught up on those and they were my 2 mains, now I'm at a point where I'm able to catch up on the back catalogs of some of the other shows that I was just listening to new versions of. So Serious Inquiries, or Herd Mentality, getting the old episodes of Incredulous, just basically things that I never would have known existed had I not listened to these shows and heard the community at work, hey, we did this and we did this. And it's like, Jesus, it's a circle. They just do all these things. Now I know why. It's the promotion. It helps get it out there for people.
Right. Absolutely. So our show is, we kind of came to you and we're a polyamorous show. We want to talk about polyamory, love, relationships, advice, things like that. So our show today is actually going to be based on what poly people can learn from.
Other way around.
Yeah. Our show today is going to be based on what monogamous people can learn from polyamorous people that maybe they've had touchings on whenever they have issues, but, you know, kind of the way that we want to put more emphasis on these things.
And your perspective, Fred, is going to be interesting because it sounds like you haven't always been monogamous, but you self-identify as monogamous. So I think you've got like a really good foot in both worlds to be able to kind of talk about these things, like what you have brought into your monogamous relationship from relationships that might not necessarily have been that way.
Yeah. And I mean, it will hopefully clear up not maybe misconceptions, but just a lack of knowledge, because I will, admit my knowledge of what poly is and the community is very limited. I mean, I listened to both episodes, the roundtable you guys did with Chris, and that's, definitely got information that I had not had before. And my exposure or experience with it was literally, you read some of it online or you hear about people that are in that lifestyle. And then Showtime had a really shitty show called Poly, I believe, that they put out that I had watched. And, you get these misconceptions from it. And it's like, okay, well, wait, what they're describing is not what I watched in that show at all.
Can you describe some of the things that you felt informed by, or that shocked you, or that kind of broke us as people out of the mold of what you'd expected?
Okay, so having watched the show, they obviously went into the different couples. And so they had one couple that was a male and two females living together. And then they had another one that was a couple with kids, but then they had another couple that moved in with them. And then they branched that couple off into the people that they were also seeing. And what I got a lot of out of the show was a ton of jealousy issues. And it didn't look like any of the people that they were highlighting were comfortable in the lives that they were living. And then they'd be like, jealous, sex scene, everything's okay. Jealous, sex scene, everything's okay. And it was, clearly cut for TV. So that's what you're kind of informed by, is you've got a bunch of people who are uncomfortable in the way they live, and they make it better by fucking, and then that's it. So
that's one of the reasons why I stopped watching that show. I think I watched the first two episodes because I was interested just to see what it was going to be about, right? And I watched it and I got the same impression. And then the sex scenes happens, and I'm like, wait, where did they talk about
where was
stuff?
Where was the communication?
Like, right, and that actually segues into our first subject, Jeannie. What is it? Trust,
honesty, and communication.
Right. So that's one of the things that this show left out, and it really pissed me off.
Well, if somebody doesn't, you cannot have honest communication, and just like, you have to be honest with yourself and be able to communicate that self-knowledge with other people, and there has to be trust. So.
Well, I mean, the way, even just in the communication that show was using to present itself to the world. So you got to think that I'm not the only person that had no experience with poly outside of maybe some internet references that watched that show. And then that's the idea I have in my head. So if you guys watch that show, you live in that lifestyle, you understand it. There are things that you're going to look at and be like, no, this is bullshit. Whereas I'm looking at the show and I'm like, well, I don't see the value in the lifestyle you're living if you live your life just and not talking, and then everyone wants to have sex. I mean, basically, we're living a shittier version of what any monogamous couple that has a bad relationship is living, and And so, that's the viewpoint that they're communicating. So it doesn't even have to be the communication between the two, but the communication that bias presents when you're getting a bad version of what poly is.
Right, and that was the first thing that I noticed about the show. Whenever I'm watching it, and they would cut to a scene where a girl was complaining about her husband having these feelings about another woman and things like that, and she was just so upset about it. But she's talking to her friend about it. She's not dealing constructively with it, and she's not communicating to her husband what the issue is or anything like that. It was just her venting about it. And I was just like, okay, that's shitty. Okay. And then just a few scenes later, it's a sex scene between her and another person. So the big thing about polyamory that a lot of monogamous people can start to learn is like trust and honesty and communication, like Jeannie said. But everything is communication. If you have a problem, if you have a happiness, if you have anything, everything is about communication. And we're going to harp on that one a lot, by the way.
Wait, so Fred, what did listening to the shows that we recorded for Chris, what did that bring to light for you? Like, oh, this is not how this works. Like, what was that change?
Well, obviously, what Shane is talking about right now with the communication was a big thing, because you guys made it very clear that when you're in those situations, you don't just let things fester, or you don't, let things grow to a point. It's a lot of openness, and especially, the ability to even get into the situation. So when I believe Shane was talking about, how he got into it and how he had heard, while listening in the car, and then, just the conversation that started because of that. And it's like, okay, well, maybe this is something we want to look at. That's a level of communication that a ton of people are not comfortable with. It's one of those things where you got to sit down and ask yourself, could I have this conversation with my partner if it's something that I was really interested in? And so the fact that there's an openness in the limited poly community I got to hear on that show, that, I think that as, a monogamous married male, that sometimes I struggle with. I mean, we are very open with each other. We talk about everything, but I mean, I think there are still things that both of us tiptoe around sometimes, because it's like, oh, I don't know if I want to have that conversation. Whereas it seems a lot more open in the lifestyle that, you guys may have.
This actually kind of skips to what would be topic number 4 that we were planning on talking about. Shane, you want to take this one?
Right. Another the thing and honesty and communication, since they kind of all tie in together, but being open to learning more about sexual needs and like expanding your sexual horizon. There's a few things that a lot of men have and this is a really big problem for men, is opening up to your partner about things that aren't considered mainstream sexual things. Like, every guy is going to tell you, oh yeah, I'd love to have a threesome, with another woman, right? I mean, Fred, we kind of touched on this in the kink part of the episode, only for Patreon listeners exclusively. But like, when you have a fetish or a sexual desire that's out of the norm, it's hard to talk to your partner about it. One of the big ones is a large number of men like anal play, but they don't know how to introduce that concept into a discussion with their wife.
Well, I would say even like a large number of straight men enjoy anal play. Like, this is not, and a large number of gay men don't. Yeah.
And so broaching that subject with your significant other is difficult in many ways on both aspects. Like, the mainstream thought process is that, gay men love anal sex. They want it in the butt all the time. And, straight men, nothing goes near the butt because that's gay. But it's not. Like, okay, so if you're doing it with a woman and she puts something up your butt, that's not gay. That's fun. I'm just saying. Wait. Personal experience.
Shane?
Anyways, what?
Awesome. Stop talking. We're supposed to be listening. Supposed to be listening to Fred right now.
I know, but I'm waiting for Fred to be like.
Well, no, I mean, I think conversation is fine. He's leading it down a road that's perfectly fine, and a lot of that conversation is obviously informed by society. And so when you see things like, in the movie, the digit in the butt for a man during sex is always referred to as a joke, or like you said, as something that's gay, and he ends up questioning his sexuality because the woman he loves decided to give him a little extra special. It informs how people react, and not just men. And so when you have that conversation with your loved one, at least in my point of view, my experience, and you say something like, hey, you know what? I wouldn't mind if we did a little bit of exploring, and then maybe you could, play with my ass or, some of my areas that aren't just my dick and balls.
Yeah.
And the response you get is, really? And you have to not take that as you're being judged. You have to take that as genuine surprise, because at what point in your relationship have you expressed a desire to do this? And so the response should be, yes, really, I would like to try this. I would like to try this with you. I'm comfortable enough. But society has informed that conversation to a point that what's going to happen is, oh, no, not really. I was just kind of joking, just see what you would say. You
play it off.
Well,
I was just messing with you.
Well, okay, so from a female perspective, or at least like from my own perspective, and granted, a good number of this, bless you, Dan Savage, is good giving and game. Hey, it doesn't squick me out. It might not be my thing, but yeah, like, let's try this. Let's do this. Let's see where it goes. Let's find out if this makes either or both of us happy. In that case,
but see, I've had the negative of that as well. My ex-wife, when I first broached that subject with her, because it was something that I really wanted to try out and see what it was like, because I was young. And I was just like, okay, what's this about? But whenever I broached it with her, I got the really, response. And there's no real,
that's just a bad partner. That it has nothing to do with gender.
Yeah, it's a bad right. It's a bad partner, and that's not to say, but still, it makes you scared to broach that subject with anybody else.
Yeah, bad partners can shape your future relationships.
Oh, agree.
So, like we had talked about in the Patreon content, my first wife, similar to Shane's situation, where anything that was broached was essentially off limits. So that when I ended up meeting the girl that I was with longer after her, it was like she was introducing me to things that I had wanted to try anyway, but it was better that she took the lead, because then I didn't have to put myself out there. I didn't have to be the creepy deviant one saying, hey, let's try this, or can I do this to you, or will you do this to me? She basically did all that. It was, hey, I enjoy this, and I absolutely adore the fact that she was open enough and comfortable enough to say, I want to do these things. What do you think? And then we were able to have actual conversations. I had to sit down and think, would I be willing to have her use toys on me? Would I be willing to, engage in threesomes both with another man or another woman? And if it was up to me, those would just always have been jokes. Like, oh yeah, let's pick up another chick, or oh, you're attracted to her, let's bring her home. And it's like, oh no, we're not going to do that tonight, because just because I'm making the joke doesn't mean she's up for it that particular night. But a week down the road, she might be like, hey, we're fucking this girl.
Right. And like that's kind of a situation that I've ran into with some friends of mine that I'm kind of just helping them kind of broaden these subjects in their own world, because they came to me, and they've been together for 15 years. They're both in their 40s, and the husband has been wanting a woman who would dominate him, and he's been wanting it all of his life. And here's a couple who, like I said, been together for over 15 years, and they had never talked about this. Like, she had seen his porn collection, she had seen all of this, and finally she just said, I noticed that you watch a lot of femdom porn. Like, what is that about? And he's like, well, I've always wanted that. Well, that's not in her realm of things that she's comfortable doing. But
or maybe not yet.
Saying, well, yeah, or not yet, and especially
because that's brand new information. Holy shit! Let me think about this for a little bit.
Right. And so she took a lot of time to contemplate it, but then her solution, their compromise, was to go into FetLife and a couple other sites and kind of start exploring that community together. And then she got to watch, they got to hire a femdom, a fem dominatrix who did the communication. They sat down and made the rules, the boundaries. They set up safe words, and she got to watch that and experience it. And now she's being tutored by the dominatrix.
That's awesome. That's a lovely story.
And so when you see stuff like that, that's kind of that communication has to start somewhere between one of them. Like, pay attention to your partner's porn things that they like. Maybe you can't do the tentacle porn hentai, but see like what the things that are realistic enough, and don't have the negative reaction.
Well, that's kind of where I started out with kink as well. Was it was like just 101 kink. Like, all right, let's try a whole bunch of different shit. And it turns out that both me and my husband at the time liked to be a little bit subby, and I can switch. I can top if I have to, and sometimes I do just because somebody's doing it wrong. But I didn't want to have to top all the time, and it got exhausting. And my solution was, you know what? Go out and find this thing. Find somebody safe. If you need a dominatrix, go find a dominatrix. I want to, vet them a little bit, make sure they're safe, make sure that they're using good safe sex practices. I want to kind of know roughly what you're doing, but if this is something that you want, go find this, because I can't give this to you. This is not something that I can do on a regular basis.
Yeah. And so that's how a lot of poly people deal with, you're you try to open up, because once you open up your relationship to other people, and allow other people to kind of explore things like that, you start learning how to deal with, opening up and communicating. Well, I really want to try things with another guy and actually do things with the other guy. Granted, you met your wife and
it leads into compromise.
Right. And so the next one the communication thing is, how do you compromise? At what point do you say, okay, I can meet you here, and can you meet me here too? And you come to the compromise, and it may be a compromise more on one person's part versus the other person's part. But at some point you have to start compromising. And if you don't compromise,
that was a question
correctly.
Well, do you guys run into a situation where compromise, despite the fact that it shouldn't, compromise has a negative connotation to it? And a lot of people will look at the word compromise and just see, oh, well, if we're compromising, then nobody's getting what they want. You're not getting everything you want. You're not getting everything you want. You're just getting parts. So do you guys ever run into that scenario where compromise has that negative connotation, or has it transcended that in the poly world where you understand fully that compromise is just trying to make everyone as happy as possible?
Hey, Fred, you're not interviewing us, by the way.
But if I'm
Jeannie,
learning,
he has questions. He has questions.
He does have questions,
so he can ask them. So, sweetie, let it be organic.
I'm letting him ask him, but I'm interested in seeing his perspective on.
I know.
Okay.
But
maybe your perspective will shape my perspective.
You just shushed me, though, Shane.
There you go. I did just shush you, but only because he's a mono guy and we're poly, and that was a valid question. So it's okay.
Okay.
I didn't shush you. I don't mean it.
Oh no, I'm not pissed. I'm just laughing at you. It's fine. I did.
Okay.
You're gonna go off again. Okay. And Shane, go.
No, I was about to ask you, Jeannie, do you how do you deal with compromise? I mean, do you have any negative? Do you have any negative stories about how compromise was kind of taken too far?
Maybe not stories, but I've usually at the end of and this is kind of coming up on another topic, but every time that I've ended a relationship, I try to pull out essentially my mental notebook about what I value, what's non-negotiable for me, what's really up on the market, and what I just can't do. And that really has to do with each person. But it's also been, I'm still a really shy person, but I'm much more confident in being shy than I used to be. And when I was less confident, and I think that's a lot of it, is you have to be confident in order to communicate. Yeah.
You have to know what you want and what you need.
Yes. Well,
and you have to know the difference between the two. So Fred, to answer your question, like, a lot of times compromise, especially when it's taken the wrong way, is when a person is not necessarily compromising, but giving in. Right. They're not comfortable with the situation. They're not happy with the thought process. They haven't had time to process it. They're not, they're essentially doing whatever it takes to make the person that they're with happy, even at the expense of their own comfort and happiness themselves.
But there's not the dialogue back and forth between, okay, so it makes me uncomfortable when this happens. This is how to mitigate that feeling within me in order to make me feel more comfortable. If that's something that you're willing to do, that can work together to both make you happy and me more comfortable, and then everybody wins. That's compromise.
Right. And the compromise is kind of the starting point. It's not an end all be all. Like that's not
even remotely.
So,
right. Just laying the groundwork for where you're going to eventually get to in the decision making process. Well,
right. So you start with.
I was going to say, obviously, because we're talking about it from, the viewpoint of someone who identifies as mono. When I look at compromise, or when I've looked at compromise in my experience, what you would get is, let's say, the scenario, and it may be, again, what society shows or what the media is dictating, but you get the guy who says, I want to have the threesome. Can we introduce such and such? Like, oh, she's pretty. Let's have a threesome with her. Or I'm interested in your friend. Can we do the threesome? Or however it works out. And so the conversation ends up being, well, I'll do that for you, but you're going to do this for me. And, the compromise comes about because maybe what and again, this just may be a weird way of looking at it, but like, let's say that, the response is okay, but then we're going to have sex with your friend. And so it's going to be that. And when you look at the situation, you're like, well, I'm trying to engage in bringing another girl in because it's something that I've seen. I feel programmed as a male to want, that I should like that. And I want to experience whether or not I actually do. And you're asking for something that I'm pretty sure positive that I wouldn't enjoy. But you feel that pressure to compromise because you got to be fair.
It's like the give and take.
Right.
Like, I'm going to give you this and you're going to take this. That's not compromise. That is negotiation. And negotiation is fine as well. It is a part of the compromising process. But it's not a give and take kind of situation. It's okay, where can we meet in the middle about this one issue? So
it's working on changing the definition of what compromise is, or understanding better what compromise is in any situation, whether it be mono or poly, is fully understanding that, me saying I'm going to eat this last piece of cake, but I'm going to give you the chance to do the dishes isn't compromise. It's just a negotiation tactic. Instead of, so it'll be like, hey, I really want this last piece of cake. You really want this last piece of cake. Let's eat the outsides of it until we meet in the middle.
Yes,
right.
Exactly.
Right. And so that's where you kind of come to terms with, like, okay, so I want to try this sexual thing. I'm going to go back to the dominatrix story that I was just talking about. At first she wasn't very comfortable with it, but she came to the guys, hey, let's together and let me watch and see what it looks like. That's the compromise. And then whenever she saw it and she was able to experience it with him, it expanded her horizon to say, wow, that looks really fun. I would like to do that as well. And so the expansion of that compromise comes out, and people say, okay, well, that makes a lot of sense. And so that's kind of where you start, the communication starts over again.
Yes.
Like, okay, so do you want to do that to me? Do you want to do that to other people? I would say
that compromise, like that aspect of it, isn't. It's more into negotiation, and the communication has to stay constant. Like, it can't be the communication starts all over again. It could reset within a new format, like a new structure, a new way of thinking about things, but it can't stop. It has to always be there.
Well, you saying that was actually touching on, basically I was going to jump in and say the same thing, really, is that, what it seems like, or what's being presented is, like you guys said, the first thing is communication, and you were going to touch on it a lot. Well, without that communication, you're never going to get to that point of compromise, because it's going to be that you mention something, you talk a little bit about it, and then it just kind of goes away. And so the next time you get in a situation where, you're laying there in that sexual pre-glow or afterglow, and this comes up, and it's like, oh yeah, I remember you mentioning that, and then you talk a little bit about it, but then it goes away. And I can see, maybe not, that all people in the poly lifestyle are on a different level when it comes to communication, but just in my own experiences with some past relationships, it's definitely, like, you guys are preaching something that obviously I knew but didn't always follow through with.
We are Polyaskery. 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 You can find us at Polyaskery pretty much anywhere. Try polyaskery.com. That will lead you, among other places, to our Facebook page, our blog, our Twitter, and our Patreon. Polyaskery. We are here. Join us, but only with the consent of all
I'm super
people
jealous
involved.
of your mic and speak.
Can you see this? Can you see this right now? Can you see how jealous I am? This is my setup.
Right.
For all of you listening, you can't see this right now, so.
No, haha.
I have a small mic. It's not a big mic, but it's a nice setup.
I actually have a. Speaking of jealousy, Riss actually has a mic that she's not using, and I was going to try to come to. And this is a brief plug. Riss was in and is in Vagina Monologues as her first theater experience this weekend. I was going to try to get down there to Philadelphia, but I just couldn't figure out how to do a 7-hour round trip drive. But she has a girthy mic that I have been promised. And Shane is trying not to laugh too hard.
Oh my God. I was both laughing and coughing at the same time. Wow. Oh, good Lord.
So, yes, I will actually at some point have a free girthy mic courtesy of Riss McCool.
After you get a computer that can.
Yeah, that's the next one. But
hey, one step at a time.
It takes the mic off the board at least, but But no, she had a great time, it sounds like, and this was her first time as any kind of part of a theater community. So this was her first time with feeling that. Like, I don't know if either of you guys have ever been part of a theater, but
I've been to a Vagina Monologues here.
You've been to, but have you ever been part of theater community?
No, I'm not a theater person.
I was always behind the scenes. I did stagecraft, and then I did lighting and sound, but never actually acted. Yeah,
but you've been part of that community, so you know what it's like, that closeness that you can have.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, I think it's kind of the same thing as the podcaster community. It's just different, but this was her first experience with it, and it sounds like she was just really blown away with the amount of love and acceptance, and I bet she was fucking fierce. She must have been.
Oh, yeah. She looked fierce. Did you see the pictures?
No, I haven't looked yet. I got up this morning and then started talking to you.
She had some thigh-high boots on that I was just like, oh, man, those are amazing.
Yeah, the outfit was very put together. She looked amazing.
Yeah, she looked great.
I'm crying seeing these pictures.
I
love you. Yeah, no.
But we were talking about jealousy.
Okay.
Yes.
And
right,
so
we were talking about jealousy.
And Riss's girthy mic.
That is
and
something that is, and again, having listened to your guys' conversations, one of the things that I guess you could say I learned, or at least opened up to, is it again goes back to the communication, is that if you even are feeling that emotion, you have to address it and you have to put it out there and let people know, like, okay, so this is where I'm at right now, and I understand where you're at. How can we get me closer to where you're at? And, that's, again, everything I can see where, all of the plot points that we're talking about interconnect, because then you come into the compromise and to hope to eliminate some of that jealousy. For me specifically, I don't know that I ever really feel super jealous. It's just one of those, any jealousy I feel is why aren't I getting the attention? And it's a completely mindless thing. Like, I know I shouldn't get the attention all the time, but that's the only time I ever feel jealousy is like, hey, I want attention too.
Actually, that was really, really well stated, Fred. That was spot on for how poly works, is being able to say that, like, that little bit, this is what I need. And again, that comes down to self-communication is, okay, so why am I feeling jealous? Like, is it the time? Is it the attention? Do I need more sex? Do I want to always do the grocery shopping together? Like, what is that thing that will make me feel less jealous? So yeah,
one of the things,
it's not bad. It's just, it is.
Yeah, I think it just kind of exists. You people that are ever like, oh, I never feel jealous, you're lying. You have to. There's just something. And one of the ways that I look at it is like, I can get those feelings. Like, let's say, like, my wife and I have a routine. We spend a lot of our time together. We work together. She comes home, like, she goes and spends the afternoons with her kids. And then when she comes home, usually the rest of the night is us together. And it's not necessarily us up each other's asses. We'll sit on, like, I sit in a chair. She sits on the couch right next to me. We play on our phones. We watch something on Netflix, but we have a routine. So where the jealousy will come up is, let's say she's like, oh, by the way, so-and-so from work asked me if, we wanted to do a girls' night and go out, and she's the routine. And so then instead of doing the normal routine, I look over and she's not there with me. And that little bit of like, oh, like I don't like that, not in that I don't want her to have fun, but that either I feel left out, or I feel like, should I be doing something, or this is different from what I normally do and I don't like it.
So
being open.
I was going to say, so what would make you feel in a situation like that? It's more about saying, okay, so, like, I want you to go out. I want you to go have a good time. I want you to go spend time with your friends. I'm going to miss you. Can we do X tomorrow to make me feel nurtured or loved or cherished or appreciated or spent time with? Like, it's that finding that balance.
Right. Yeah, but with him and her spending so much time together normally, and this being a change of his routine and things like that, like, he first has to be open to the fact that, yes, he is jealous. One of the ways that he can constructively deal with this jealousy is to go, okay, well, we do spend all this time together, and he needs to write. And Fred, this is something for you to kind of,
he's giving you homework.
Yeah, this is for future reference. So, like, jealousy is an emotion that you have, right? It's an emotion that you are dealing with, that you are, that you should own the responsibility of. It's not a matter of what the other person is doing. It's not a matter of who's making you feel jealous or anything like that. The thing is you're feeling the emotion. And so, like, when my wife goes and stays with other people, or she sleeps with, her other partner, like, she's not in my bed. And so, like, we are those sleepers that make everybody grossed out because we touch all night. Like, our entire bodies are melded together. Like, that scene of, what's that movie? I can't think of it, but anyways, bodies start melding together. It gets really gross. That's us. And so what I have to deal with is, okay, why do I feel this way? You know, why am I feeling jealous? Okay, well, it's because she's not here. Should I be jealous? Why am I jealous about this? Oh, it's a break in my routine. She's normally here. And like, is this a valid feeling? All feelings are valid, but is it really that important?
Well, that's what I was talking about, self-honesty.
Right. Yeah. And asking yourself those questions and delving into them, and then being honest with yourself and communicating with yourself. And then the trusting her that she's having fun and thinking about that kind of stuff. There's an opposite of jealousy, which I touched on, is called compersion.
I love compersion.
Right. And that was actually the first time I had heard about that at all. So.
Right. And for people who haven't listened to it, compersion is the opposite of jealousy.
Do you have any questions about it before Shane delves into the definition?
Well, no, I don't think I have any questions, because when you guys kind of went over it, I got the basic idea, and I don't know why this didn't click until you had just mentioned it right now. But what we had talked about in the Patreon content about once I realized that I really enjoyed that one particular thing that didn't involve me, I was just watching. Seems like a pretty good example of what you're talking about there. It was the exact opposite of being jealous in that situation. I was just happy she was happy.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And that's a prime example. And that's what compersion is. It is the joy in seeing the happiness of your partner with, somebody else, doing something else, spending time with somebody else, seeing their happiness makes you happy. And, that's a prime example of what compersion is. And sometimes you don't feel it. Sometimes you get twinges and stuff like that. And that's okay as well. What you do is just the communication with yourself, talking yourself through the emotion, just like you deal with any emotion. Anger, sadness, you deal with the emotion in constructive ways, process it, you channel it, and then you move on from it. And that doesn't mean that you're going to, never feel it again or anything, but that's just the way it is.
I think I do have a question about compersion, and this may be another case of I'm going to ask a question, you're going to remind me I'm being interviewed, and then you're going to get shushed again. But with compersion, because obviously anything can be a negative if too much, if there's too much or it's done the wrong way or something, there can be a negative to about anything. Have you ever experienced it to a level that it was just too much? Like maybe you started to give too much of yourself because you were too locked into this feeling of someone else. Like, is there a level you think it can go too far?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I was that person through most of junior high school. Where I kept giving to my friends, and not in a relationship sort of way, or not in a sexual relationship sort of way, but all the time, giving. And nothing ever came back. And that was kind of where I started to, I would want to say, grow up and start setting boundaries. And that's, I think, also part of any relationship of any sort, sexual or not, that any relationship you have with another person, you have to kind of figure out where your boundaries are, set them, still let them be flexible, but keep a sense of yourself. Like you have to know who you are and maintain at least a basic level of sanity. I'm not saying like, don't be crazy, because we all do that.
Right.
But you have to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Maybe not first and foremost, but you have to set yourself as a priority within your relationship. Otherwise, I should pause right there. If I can't be a whole person, if I can't, and I've done this before, I felt like I am not ready for a relationship. I'm not in a good place in my life. I have to take myself off the market and say, I really can't have any more friends. I can't really, I'm not going to date anybody because I am not in a place to be able to do that because I don't really have a good grasp on who I am. So I need to check in with myself first and then be ready to say, okay, world, here I am, flaws and all.
Right. Learning that aspect of your individuality, of who you are, really helps you with dealing with your emotions constructively. It helps you be able to set boundaries. It helps you to learn how to compromise because it gives you the baseline of what you are usually comfortable with. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I guess in a way, it's just one of those, to me, the reason why I asked it was Jeannie really answered it a lot the way I was asking it. And the reason why is because, like my wife is very much a giver. She wants everyone around her to always be taken care of. And sometimes she defines herself by it. So to hear her give an example of, that aspect outside of physical relationships was a good way to kind of look at this and be like, okay, this is something you can see and present that, you have to be able to have clear boundaries when you're going into these situations, so that I can see things more from her point of view, because a lot of times I'll look at it and just be like, why, what are you, because she crosses that line into it's too much. Like she tries to give too much of herself and runs herself ragged. And, having that better understanding of what she's dealing with, what she's experiencing is definitely something that would open up a line of communication between us where instead of me saying why, I can be like, okay, I get what you're doing and where you're coming from. Now let's see if we can rein in. You can still get what you need, but you don't have to go so far. You're not giving your entire self to it.
Yes.
Right. And so that's kind of funny because the next subject is time management. And that actually feeds a whole lot into that one.
Well,
Jeannie, what is time management? How do you define time management? Like when you're dealing?
I'm the wrong person. I'm the wrong person to ask because I am an incredible introvert. So I manage. Yeah, stop laughing.
Don't tell me to stop laughing.
Oh, good. Stop laughing. I choose better now who I spend my time with, like who is, oh God, this would be shitty to say, like valuable of my time. I pick my friends closely. Right. Anybody that I'm going to spend my time with, I want that to be valuable time. They don't have to agree with me. I actually prefer when they don't. But I want to have a good conversation with a good person with a good mind and a good heart. And, for example, one of the people that is one of my Facebook friends that I've never met lives in Washington State, and he's a Republican and he's a Christian and he has a really good heart. And he donates his time. He is very generous with trying to help the homeless and he called me up after the election and said, Jeannie, are you doing okay? And I said, no, wow. I'm not. But that's the kind of people that I want in my life. I want people that actually that we can have a dialogue with. And that doesn't just have to do with sexual relationships. That has to do with people that I want to keep around me. So I keep a very, very close lock on who I let have access into my life, except for now I'm doing this podcast.
And so you're letting the whole world into your life.
Yeah, I am. But I'm doing the privacy of my own home, and I'm wearing one piece of clothing. So,
and you get to release what you want, as opposed to opening the door wide so that everybody gets everything.
Yeah, and I'm giving myself out, but I'm not taking on other people's issues as well. Like I can be compassionate, but I don't have to care about everybody who ever hears this knocking on my door at 2:00 in the morning and saying, hey, I need a place to crash for 3 weeks and please pay my bills and feed me while I'm here.
How do you get to the point in time management where you're at, as opposed to what I would say is maybe someone inexperienced in poly, or even just the mono viewpoint of when you meet someone new, whether it be relationship or friend or whatever, you get that rush of, I just want to spend all my time with you and everyone else be damned.
Sorry, that's new relationship energy and everybody gets it. And that is a time management killer. It's really hard to focus on the other people who are in your life and other relationships that you have, because you make that new friend and y'all both like Call of Duty Black Ops 3 and you're sitting here just like always playing against each other and killing each other. And your wife is over there looking at you going, you were supposed to rub my feet 15 minutes ago, and I'm needing my feet.
Yeah, this is communication, boundaries.
Yeah.
This is where you look snidely over your shoulder and like, you got hands?
Rub your own feet. No, don't. That's a boundary you don't want to set.
That's also compersion, though, too. It's like saying, hey, I'm going to take joy in the fact that you're experiencing all these like brain chemicals happening. And enjoying the fact that you're enjoying new love.
Yeah. So time management isn't just one person's responsibility. It's everybody's responsibility that's within that relationship. Even the metamors who are outside the relationship.
Absolutely.
They have to express and communicate their need for your time when you're up in cloud 9. With this new person, and say, hey man, I know you want to really play that game, or I know you want to be with that girl, or I know you want to be with that guy, but I need you to make sure that you still spend time with you. I have these needs that still need to be met.
And Google Calendars is a plus, Shane.
Yeah, Google Calendar is a plus. I have a Google Calendar with Jeannie now, and I have a Google Calendar with my girlfriend that lives in about 2.5 hours away, and I have a Google Calendar with my quad that I live with. And my wife has shared a Google Calendar with another couple that we're friends with, that she's all dating the husband. And so I've got a really large polycule, and so we have to make sure that we're scheduling things more. It's really hard to do a lot of spontaneous things. You can still do it, but you have to do it with the consent of everybody around you. So it's not me going, hey, I'm going to surprise, my wife and go out and surprise her. It's, hey, did you have plans on this day? I'm going to do this. Don't tell her because, it's a surprise. And, the problem is, what's that saying? A secret's not a secret if there's more than two people. So, you still have to kind of find that balance. You have to set those boundaries. You have to respect those boundaries. Yeah. And then you have to communicate your needs from all aspects of it. And Google Calendar is your best friend.
For instance, is I have a sweetie right now who is local, still really relatively new. And holidays are not a good time to catch up, hook up, spend time together, especially when there's extra hours involved and his mom's in the hospital. And so part of my time management is that at any point he could call and say, hey, I just need like cuddles and Chinese food and some shitty TV. But that's pretty much my only regular-ish commitment at all, at least other than podcasting, with a person is he's counting. So
I have 5 commitments.
Yeah, and I have 1. So my time management is relatively easy because I'm an introvert. So staying home alone is fine for me. And whenever we plan something, with Sweetie, I also have to plan on, hey, this might be canceled at the last minute because his mom is in and out of the hospital. So there's a lot of it's that flexibility and communication involved with making sure that I'm respecting his time and he's respecting mine.
Yeah.
Did that kind of answer your question, Fred?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a much different scenario than what I live in. I mean, my time management situation is we wake up, we go to work, we come home, we know pretty much what every day is going to be. It's like I'd mentioned earlier, it's just those little breaks in the routine, but obviously those are almost never truly spontaneous. They're usually, hey, you know, that we're thinking about doing this on Saturday. What do you think? But for the most part, everything else is pretty measured out. I mean, we don't do Google Calendar. We actually have like an old school, like dry erase calendar on the wall. So, you know, if there is something that pops up, like, you know, doing the recording today is on that calendar. Now, obviously, you guys shared, you know, the Polyamory Google Calendar for the appointment, essentially, of Be Ready. But, you know, I've got it up there. So if she looks and she can see on any given Saturday, because usually Saturday during the day, we're apart. She's with her girls and I go over there later in the afternoon. So, you know, during the day on Saturday, she can look up and be like, oh, you're doing this on Saturday or that. So I'm kind of the same way you are, where most of the time my time management's at home. If somebody wants to do something, you know, I'm here. You know, it's like, okay, send me the message. Let's see if I want to do it. I'll do it. If I don't, I don't. But it's not the same as like what Shane is saying, where he's essentially juggling 5 calendars at any given time. And honestly, for myself, that would drive me a little bit mad if I wanted to do something with her and I'm like having to make sure that all the other calendars are clear. And then I'm like, okay, I'm good. Whereas if I want to do something now, it's like, hey, let's go do something, you know?
Yeah, I've been a project manager as a professional.
You can't tell.
So I got you. Yeah, so I you know, I'm pretty good at time management because that's one of the lessons that you learn very early on. And I'm also an extrovert, so I love surrounding myself with people. Well, I live with 2 introverts and another extrovert who also likes to spend his time alone sometimes and has very specific hobbies that he sets aside his time for. You know,
it helps that you're on the same
I have
house.
to respect their boundaries. Right. That does help. But I have to respect their boundary. Hey, I want to have a few people that are all okay with it. And I'll get various answers back. Well, yes, but I need you to spend an hour with me before they come over, snuggling and hugging me. Okay.
Communication.
Right. I'm going to be antisocial tonight, and I'm going to be upstairs on my computer. And then the third one is, I don't care. I've got games tonight. I won't be home anyways. So that's an example of how that kind of works out for me, you know, and I respect those boundaries and I don't push on them. I may push a little bit, but like, hey, your sister's coming over, you know, don't you want to spend time with her or something like that? Or, hey, you know, our buddy is coming over. He's, you know, having a hard time of it. Can you come down and kind of help him a little bit deal with what he's going through? And so those are kind of like how we communicate back and forth and things like that. By the way, we're going on.
I was just gonna say, can we skip
hour and 40 minutes?
Can we skip number 5 and just get on to endings?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to talk about how your endings of your relationships have happened, Fred? And did you, as a mono person, did you count them as a failure or a success?
I would say anytime a relationship is ended, I viewed it as a failure, mainly because every time a relationship is ended, it's never been on like even peaceful-ish terms, I guess. You know, with my first marriage, and I mean, when I look at actual relationships, you know, I've only had a few serious ones. I mean, I've been like casual dating with girls, or, you know, just kind of like hookup friends, or however you want to describe it, with, you know, females. But for the most part, you know, just a few serious relationships. I dated one girl in high school for about 2 years, and it got to the point where I had the thought of, you know, I don't know that I would be locked into a serious relationship forever. I want to see what else is out there. And so I ended things. Well, that obviously didn't go over well because the relationship stemmed from, it was a group of us that worked together. We were roommates, all kinds of stuff. And when that relationship ended, like, she didn't go anywhere. She was still there all the time. So, it's kind of that, like, you both move on, but you're still there in each other's lives all the time. And then you start to develop almost like an animosity. Like, if you see things that are occurring in a new relationship that didn't occur in the previous relationship. So it's like, well, wait, why are you able to do that thing with her and you didn't do it with me? Or why are you able to do that thing with him and you didn't do it with me? And you kind of build this, like, you need that separation.
Is that why you consider them a failure then? Or maybe a better question is, why did you consider that a failure then?
Well, in that regard, you consider it a failure because of the way that it ended. Like, I consider myself to be a semi-decent person. Like, I care about the people that I care about. They're important to me. If you're outside of that bubble or I don't know you, generally you're going to fall under I can have empathy for you, but I'm not going to have genuine care. It's just, I'm not wired that way. You have to get inside the bubble for me to care. So obviously someone I'm in a relationship with, I care about. So for me, I feel like I should be able to maintain that relationship. And if the end of the relationship doesn't allow that, or it's not, you don't come out of it even as people that can be casually conversant with, it feels like a failure because you're giving away a part of what was your life. And, like, that's just gone now. So that portion of what you did it's all history. It's all memory. You don't. Yes. And so that's where the failure feels, that's what feels like a failure. And then when you look at, like, a situation like my first marriage, I never should have gotten married. I think we both agree that we probably shouldn't have got married. We let her family pressure us into that because of their beliefs, especially about our situation with being not married and having a kid. And it ends up feeling like a failure because you did something that you're taught, or at least semi-taught, should be a permanent thing. Like, once you do it, this is the life you live. And when it doesn't end up that way, it takes a little while to realize that it can be a good and not just a blatant failure. Like, you didn't fail as an adult or a human because you weren't able to maintain that marriage. You just might not have been right. And so, but you still end up, like, I still look back at it and be like, okay, there were some failings there. This shouldn't be how it ended. And it shouldn't be the life I gave to my kids.
Right. And so I've had to do different types of endings and things like that. And in my childhood, and I've talked about this before, my parents stayed together for way too long. And they would split up for a little while and then they would get back together. And, when they finally got to the point of my mom had enough with my dad, she left, and there was so much animosity built up between the two that they couldn't even communicate with each other about me, their child. And so, I had to deal with that issue. And then the same thing actually wound up happening to me when I met my first wife. And much like yours, Fred, we shouldn't have gotten married. I got pressured by my church to get married because she was pregnant with our first child. I was 22. She was 23. And, we just should not have been together because we were so diametrically opposite of each other and not able to find any common middle ground. There was no compromising. There was no communication. She didn't trust me. I didn't trust her. Like, there was just a lot of red flags that we both ignored. And I should have ended it probably the day she got pregnant. Like, I love my kids, and I wish, and I would never wish that I'd never had my children. So if I could magically somehow have had my kids but not have to deal with her, I would be much happier.
No, I've had that thought.
But at the same time, she also taught me a lot about myself and who I was. Now, granted, it took me 7 years to figure it out, and an awesome wife, but still, there was so much wrong with my relationship, and we did everything wrong that you can do in a relationship to try to fix it when we should have just ended it.
Actually, are you wrapped up? Okay. Yeah. I actually have a couple of like happy ending stories. I have a couple of like really shitty ending stories too. And that most comes down to care and treatment of unicorns, which is a whole nother show. But two of my favorite, I call them formers with capital letters, are amazing. And we just weren't right for each other at the time, but we're still friends. One of my favorite formers has very similar situation to both of you guys, but except he was smart enough to not marry the person who he accidentally impregnated. And for him, I give that huge bonus points because that was him being self-aware at that point in his life. And he was still really young at that then. So it was like first date and like one night of like, well, we're raising a kid together. Drunken fuck up. Oops, here's another kid. And he's being an awesome dad. But I get to spend time with people who, I think I mentioned this earlier. I spent the last 2 Thanksgivings with one of my favorite formers because her girlfriend was out of town. And we cooked together and snuggled and watched bad TV, and that was a successful relationship. It doesn't matter that it ended. It just matters that it was successful. We did what we needed to do for the time that we were together, and now we're still friends. That's bonus points. And the guy that I was with his kids, he called me and sent me some pictures and said, "Hey, so I'm about to propose. What do you think of this? Like, I have these 3 rings. Which one do you think was going to suit her the best?"
Right.
That's awesome. That's successful. I got him laid on my 40th birthday. Good. Yeah. Yes. Go with that.
So that's one of the things that polyamory has taught me so much about is to recognize that relationships end. It doesn't matter if they end 2 weeks after you meet. It doesn't matter if they end 30 years, when you die. It doesn't matter when they end. It's just that relationships do end.
That's one of those things that, like, as a poly person, we could probably teach mono people how to do that better.
Right. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted this show. All the stuff that we've talked about, right, Fred? The trust, honesty, communication, being open to learning about sexual needs, how to deal with your jealousy and feelings.
Time.
Time management and things like that. Like, all of that actually all boils down to the fact that at some point, sometimes none of it works. Like, you can't compromise anymore. You can't deal with the feelings that you're feeling with constructively. You can't deal with the time management. You just don't have time. Or you are just not sexually compatible, romantically compatible, emotionally compatible, mentally compatible, physically compatible. Like, when you have dealt with all of these different things, the end point is recognizing that when you can't make any more changes is when the relationship needs to go ahead and end. And it needs to end on a note of, this is what's going on in my world. I can't give you what you need. And I think we should just be friends until we can either come back together and maybe something in the future will free up and we'll be able to do that. I'll be able to grow up and be able to deal with these emotions more better. Yes, I had that. Like, I will be able to be the femdom to you, to your subby, or I'm able to be I'm okay with you having a dominatrix husband, and I'm your friends with benefits. That's kind of how you deal with that. That's how you want to end the relationship, is on that friend note.
Well,
that's a ending to a relationship.
I will also say that even the people that are my favorite formers, it wasn't easy, and it doesn't always get to be easy, and it's not right off the bat, and it takes some time, and sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. But you cared about that person in the first place, right?
Well, so is it just a time issue in regards to, was there a time that you may not have looked back on either one of those relationships as a success, the ending of as a success, but instead more as a failure evolved into a success?
Oh, that's a good question.
Well, you definitely need to have the separation so that you can deal with your feelings. I feel like that. I just had to do a separation or kind of a short-term breakup where, it took me a couple of days to deal with my feelings because at the time I was really emotional and upset.
Yeah.
But I, with my wife's support and, my other girlfriend's support and all the friends' support, I was able to look back and say, okay, you know what? This is temporary. This is just so that person can deal with what the life situation that they're dealing with. And, that's okay. It'll be okay. That's a personal story that I had to deal with. Jeannie, did you have to have time?
I've had a couple relationships that didn't end well and that I'm still not in communication with them. And some of those relationships, usually sexual, sometimes just friendships, that they might not maintain communication, but I would still count that time that we had together as successful. Because we were who we needed to be for each other at that time. And like the breakup part of it doesn't, like that does need some processing time. It needs some time to heal, some time to think it through. But it doesn't invalidate the benefit that I got from having them in life.
Yeah.
I was going to say there are definitely, those relationships that I can look back on fondly and, remember, all the goods that were in there and the benefits and the feeling that you had when you were in the relationship. But
Yay, successful.
The way that I look at it is that even though I had all of those feelings, it still ended. And now if I'm not in communication with that person, that is where the feeling of failure comes in, is that, hey, I can remember all of these things, but just because I remember them that way, maybe the other person doesn't. And maybe that's why we're not in communication. Or if life has taken us a certain way, if I don't even look at it as relationship wise, but when I first moved to Florida, I had a best friend. We lived down the street from each other. We were together all the time. And we don't talk anymore. Now, he was my best friend. We did everything together. Like, we would cook dinner for his family, hang out, go to movies. But we don't even communicate like friendly greetings or birthday messages on Facebook. And that seems like a failing. Now, whether it's on my part or his part or both of our parts, it still seems like a failing.
I think it's more perspective. How you choose to view it.
That's one of those things. This is where you have to be honest with yourself and communicate with yourself and have some self-awareness. This is, like Jeannie said, this is how your perspective of it. Don't look at those relationships that ended as in, and only focus on the ending part. Focus on the good that you experienced while you were with that person. And just recognize that relationship end. Yeah. And that's okay. Like my relationship with my ex-wife, it took me 6 years after it ended before I could have a civil conversation with her. And our communication up until that point was like, hey, I want to get my kids. No, you can't have your kids. Or, okay, come pick up your kids. That's essentially all the communication was. But then one day I just kind of said, you know what? I'm done being angry about this. This is a stupid way to deal with this. We have to have some kind of relationship with each other. I don't have to worry about the fact that she's a crazy nutbag. I don't have to worry about the fact that she's insane. I don't have to worry about the fact that she was emotionally abusive. I don't have to hold on to that stuff, all that anger.
Were we married to the same woman?
Focus on the.
Well, I think you might have been, and it wasn't me.
No. So, but I have to focus on the things that were good. She gave me 2 beautiful babies. Mm-hmm. You know, my kids are my world, and I focus on that, and I focus on remembering how it felt when my mom and dad wouldn't communicate about me. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to be my mom. I'm not going to be my dad. I'm going to be myself, and I'm going to be a great father. And that part of that being a great father is being a good communicator with their mother.
Yeah. Well, I was fortunate. Like, my parents also divorced, and I have thanked them both a number of times since then for not sticking it out, because my sister was 2 years younger than me. That would have been 10 more years of them together. That would have been terrible. So they made the right decision by separating, but they communicated well about each other, about us all the time. And I also was married, and I got kink out of it. I got poly out of it. I got atheism out of it. Overall, that was like a net benefit. We were together for 8 years. We were married for 2 of them. I was divorced while I was living in Vermont. We got divorced over the phone. When we split up, he had a good relationship with my mother. I said, like, just because we're split up, like, don't stop that. If you guys both want to keep it up, I don't care. I mean, I cared, and there was like grieving, and there was healing, and there was, oh shit, now what do I do? Because my world had just gotten torn apart. But it would have been unfair for me to have held that against him, because we just didn't belong together.
Right. And that's just what.
So that was successful. We had a good relationship.
Yeah, and it's just changing your perspective on what a successful relationship is, away from the societal norm that says, oh, a good relationship is one that lasts for 30, 40, 50
until somebody
years.
dies.
No, until somebody dies. No, that's not a healthy, good relationship. A good relationship is one where both people had a lot of fun. They enjoyed the time together. They got, like Jeannie said, a net benefit from it. And after it ended, they were able to still communicate mostly. Now, it may take some time before they're able to communicate and still be friends. But at the end of the day, they recognized that the relationships ended. They grew the fuck up and became adults. And they said, you know what? I had a lot of fun when we did this stuff.
Thank you.
Can we be friends and do this stuff?
Or just thank you. Or just even thank you for being there.
Or just thank you for doing that. Thank you for showing me the joys of whatever it was that you showed the joys of. Thank you for helping me explore my sexuality. You know, thank you for helping me learn how to be a better father. You know, learn to accept the good things that happened, accept the bad things that happened, and move on and be an adult about it.
Fred's still interviewing us. That's very cute.
Yeah, you guys like how this keeps turning around.
I know, right? Well, no,
I think
this the whole time.
Well, no,
I think it's been more like of having a guest host more than anything. That's how I've been kind of doing this.
For me particularly, the best way to learn any particular thing that someone's trying to teach me is that you can give me the information and you're eventually going to hit a wall. I have to have, I'm going to have questions. I'm going to need to know more about telling me. So you may give me, like when we were, talking about time management, and you may explain that to me and how it works from the poly's perspective, but I'm going to hit a wall where it's like, okay, I need to know this information for me to continue absorbing what you're telling me. And so it ends up being interviewee, but it's more just, hey, answer my questions.
Well, I think it's also that
it's a conversation.
Well, it is. But like Shannon and I talked about this before we even started, is if we can help one person not make one rookie fuck up, then we're good. Like that's the whole point. One person, that's all we need to not make one stupid decision that everybody makes that they try to do poly.
Well, that, and it's not even
honestly,
necessarily like poly may not be anything that I ever experience or try or do in my life, but at least now I feel a little bit more comfortable in understanding people that do, even so much so that, like, let's say I happen to overhear a conversation and people are talking about it and I'm like, yeah, that's a misconception. You know, the ability to be able to say, I know people who live in that lifestyle. Yes, my evidence may be anecdotal, but I have a group of people that I can listen to and they're telling me these things. I'm going to trust it a lot more than a random person on the street who's to be speaking from a place of ignorance.
That's huge, Fred. Thank you.
Well, yeah, that's definitely one of the things that I learned in the secular movement and that's one of the things that I learned from the LGBT movement, is if you know people who are living the life and doing that as part of their life, then you can't sit here and stand by and listen to other people who are making judgment calls against them and not be like, hey, look, let me clear up what you're talking about because I know people who are doing what you're talking about. And you've got some misconceptions. Here's what I've learned about it. I'm not gay. I'm straight, cis, male, white male. I don't have my personal experience with gay, people of color or anything like that.
Sometimes that's also harder, though. Like to be able to stand up as somebody who's outside the movement or outside that group.
And it's not for everybody to do but you can do it.
And
yes.
You have the fallback of, hey, I know these people. This is, what they're saying. This is what I'm hearing from them. And if, let's say, you don't trust my word, please let me direct you to, the Polyamory podcast or Gaytheist Manifesto. You can hear it directly from these people that the information I'm giving you is not false as I've been presented it.
Absolutely.
Aww.
For current listeners, we're about to bump into our kink subject. And so if you want to hear more about Fred's kinks and everything, you can listen up next. For the rest of y'all, this is going to be our wrap up. Fred, how can people get a hold of you?
Every way that exists except for the ways that don't. You can find me on Facebook. Just my name, Fred Sims. I have an open profile, so pretty much anybody can look at it.
And you're the only Fred Sims out there, aren't you?
If you look, I think there are others, but none of them are a picture of a guy eating a taco that's done in like Van Gogh Starry Night style. So,
and then there you go. Just don't change your profile.
Yeah, so you can find me that way. I can't change that picture. It's an amazing picture.
Yes.
Actually, there's the story behind that picture is probably one of my favorite stories ever. I have it's just me like a selfie and I'm taking a bite out of a taco. And the way that came about is one night my wife and I were sitting around. We had gotten like the Taco 12-pack from Taco Bell, and I was looking through for some reason a lot of our friends had chosen that particular night to have a date night. So I'm literally going through and we're seeing like coworkers are like date night with my love, and like so a bunch of our friends who were also out commented on that main thread and they were like, oh, look, we're out tonight too, date night. And so I went into the kitchen, unwrapped the taco, took the picture, and then posted date night with my love. And like that's how that picture came about.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
So now it just stays because it's my favorite picture, especially when I found that way to like turn it into the Starry Night type deal. If I ever change it, it will just be to make it different filters on the picture. But other ways to find me is you can find me on Twitter. It's at O'Reilly_Fred, so ORLY_ and then just my first name. And then the podcast itself, we're on all the major, podcast platforms. And then you could also go to www.o'reillyradio.com. So, just as it's spelled out, ORLY, and that stems from the O'Reilly Owl meme. So if you're having trouble remembering, just think of that meme and you'll remember the spelling. Actually, I think we also have the actual words O'Reilly.com. We'll link you to us as well.
Nice.
All right. And I'll make sure that those are in the show notes below. Fred, it's been awesome. Thank you so much for the awesome
And there's
conversation.
huge pause. Okay.
Oh, I was done.
Sorry, and I had it myself on mute. So Fred, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It was awesome. I think we had a great conversation, and wish you all the luck. And I'll see you at ReasonCon.
Absolutely, I really appreciate it.
Me and Jeannie are going to tackle hug.
Yeah,
we are going to tackle hug you.
Be prepared. Oh,
I'm pretty elusive. I can avoid stiff arms.
No, I'm going to find you. Like, you'll be the nerd in the corner with me. So.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's going to be a level of awesome and a level of overwhelming because that many people in one space will definitely freak me out. So I will need
people
time.
like me also hiding in a corner going like this, like,
no, don't. And then y'all are hiding from people like me who are like, where's all my people at?
Yes.
I'm just trying to get hugs.
Just quietly direct them towards our corner. We will be there.
Yeah,
hiding.
I'm going to set up.
Like Jeannie's
I'm going to
over
set
there.
up a chair and a little sign that says, I really want to meet you all. Just please one at a time.
Oh,
wait, we can't tag team you? Aw.
That's later on.
Yeah, that's not in the chair. The chair's not going to be able to handle that.
What's really bad is I'm going to email him and just be like, hey, send me a dick.
That's Patreon content only.
Patreon content only.
Actually,
so if
I was going to say, like, dude, that counts as solicited. So my turn next.
Clearly, the patrons will realize that's not the first time I've been solicited. So,
you're awesome,
right,
Fred. Thank you so much for doing this.
no, thank you. I mean, I really appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk and learn something that, like I said, obviously I had some misconceptions, not necessarily of my own fault, but it wasn't anything that I lived in. So, the ability to talk and learn something new is always something I'm interested in.
I really wish we had more time to get into cultural media and misconceptions, but I'm guessing Shane's going to start cutting me off.
That'll be the next show.
Yeah, I'll come back in more. I mean, like I gave you 4 topics I have to talk about. So, I mean, if you guys are ever hurt for a guest or need to report, I'll just Google calendar me and we'll go from there.
Okay.
Okay, no problem. All right. Thank y'all for joining us. This has been awesome. This has been Shane and Jeannie and Fred of Polyamory.
The Polyamory podcast. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
And
whatever.
Thanks for listening. This has been a production of Polyamory Podcast. If you enjoyed it, please check us out at patreon.com/polyamory. If you want to give to us and think that we're worth it, please donate $1, donate whatever you want, or share our links and let everybody else know about us. You can find us at polyamory.com, at Polyamory on Twitter, or you can look us up on Facebook. Thank you so much, everybody. Y'all have a great day.